Everyone, it's been my massive and huge pleasure to be your moderator for this morning. I will now head over to the outside stage, to the park stage, where the whole afternoon you can enjoy inspiring theatre performances, music, there's dance from all over Europe. It's really quite something. So we're celebrating positive change through culture out on the park stage from 1:30. So I do hope to see you there at some point as well. Of course, you're not going to be alone. You're going to be in very safe hands. My colleague Valérie Thijs will guide you through the rest of the program on this stage after this upcoming panel. This panel is called Strategic Reconstruction in Emergency: Lessons from Ukraine. Across Europe and beyond, communities are rebuilding after devastation. How to reconstruct quickly without losing quality, identity, or control? And can emergency construction be a driver for resilience, for healing landscapes, for empowering citizens, and even preparing for climate change? These are very important and also very, very strategic questions which this upcoming panel will dive into. Please, a huge round of applause for your moderator, the Senior Advisor on Culture at Partnership Fund for Resilient Ukraine, Tatiana Olinik. Give it up. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our discussion, Strategic Reconstruction in Times of Emergency: Lessons from Ukraine. I believe it is very relevant to have this conversation within the framework of the NEP Festival. The new European Bauhaus challenges us to think beyond reconstruction as a merely technical exercise. It asks how sustainability, inclusiveness, and quality of place can become guiding principles for shaping Europe's future. At a time of multiple crises, from climate change to migration to security challenges, the question is not simply how we rebuild, but how we build better, more resilient, and more connected societies. And Ukraine stands at the center of this conversation now. Often discussed through the lens of reconstruction and recovery, Ukraine also becoming a living laboratory for new approaches to reconstruction under conditions of extreme uncertainty and duress. While responding to immediate needs, Ukrainian institutions, municipalities, civil society organizations, cultural actors, and international partners are simultaneously testing new models of governance, participation, digital transparency, community-led planning, and integrated recovery. What makes Ukraine's experience especially relevant is that reconstruction is not being designed after the crisis has ended. It is unfolding in real time. Decisions about infrastructure, public services, housing, heritage, and public space are being made while communities continue to adapt to rapidly changing circumstances. This creates challenges, but also generates lessons that extend far beyond Ukraine. How can long-term transformation be pursued in parallel with emergency response? How can reconstruction strengthen democratic governance and local ownership? How can investments to the built environment contribute not only to economic recovery, but also to social cohesion, cultural vitality, and resilience? And these are not only Ukrainian questions, increasingly European questions. And today we have an opportunity to explore what Ukraine's experience can teach us about strategic reconstruction in the 21st century and how recovery efforts can become a catalyst for more resilient, inclusive, and sustainable development across Europe and beyond. And my name is Tatiana Olinik. I'm a senior advisor at the Multi-Donor Stabilization Program Partnership Fund for Resilient Ukraine. And today, with me to discuss the Ukrainian experience of reconstruction in times of emergency are Oksana Arkhipchuk, head of PromTech at PromPrilad Foundation in Ivano-Frankivsk, Ukraine. She is leading a national reskilling initiative for Ukraine's recovery. Ruta Leitanaite, an architect, curator, critic, writer, and lecturer. She serves on the board of the Architects Association of Lithuania and chairs the organization's Vilnius branch. Ruta coordinates the Creative Europe project Eureheret Architects for Heritage in Ukraine, Recreating Memory and Identity, and chairs the Architects for Council of Europe Task Force Solidarity with Ukraine, and Darius Kusevicius, Ambassador at Large for the Coordination of Recovery and Reconstruction of Ukraine at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Lithuania. So please welcome on stage. So hello everyone, and thank you very much for joining me today. And let's start with talking a little bit about your experiences and your projects. So New European Bauhaus is built around the principles of beautiful, sustainable together, and in times of war, how does this principle manifest themselves in your work and projects, and how it is still relevant in the context of ongoing crisis? Do this concept acquire new meanings? So please share with us. Let's start with Oksana probably, because your project, actually the timeline of the project largely coincides right with the situation in Ukraine, right? So we had the Russian invasion, which started in 2014, and the full-scale invasion, which started in 2020. So the prompt prelude renovation has been conceived, the idea has been conceived, and the project has been developed during this time. So please share your experience with us, Oksana.
Hello. Thank you for the introduction. And yes, the Prompt Prelude project started exactly at the end of 2018, as there has been already the invasion going on. And since 2022, one of the biggest parts of the project has been completed. Let me give a little bit introduction about the project itself. So when you think of modern Europe, you often think of London's dockers. You think of Berlin's industrialized plants that are being revitalized. You think of creative hubs in Paris. But we do exactly the same. So we have all in Europe mastered the art of turning rusty and old factories into creative hubs and into centers of culture and innovation. Ivano-Frankivsk is a city of 200,000 people, so it is quite a small city. But we are doing exactly the same thing with just one difference. Prompt Prelude Innovation Center, it's an old Soviet factory of 42,000 square meters. It did not, this is how it looked like before that, not very long time ago. And it did not just become an art center or a business accelerator. It became an arc of safety, resilience, and recovery in a time of war. When cities in Ukraine are being destroyed around us, this space has become a sanctuary for businesses, artists, and displaced people. For us, these are not just walls, and this is how it looks like at the moment. This is a living proof that Ukraine is being built right now, and we are doing it without waiting for the war to end. The European philosophy is above all about human dignity. And this is precisely how we as Prompt Prelude operate. We don't believe in concrete-only reconstruction. We believe in rebuilding through people. You all like hearing stories, I think, from the stage, so let me share a story. When the invasion started, the full-scale invasion in 22, we've had many businesses and enterprises from central and eastern Ukraine, from the front line, moving towards the western part where it was more safe. And they lost everything, and they came to us, because at Prompt Prelude, they didn't just see a power outlet or a Wi-Fi space that they could use. They saw a whole ecosystem with laboratories of radio electronics and makerspace. They had children's center and school. They had offices and coffee shops. And as a result, they were able, in those circumstances, to keep working, pay taxes, and continue creating jobs. But what is most importantly is our project, it is funded by ordinary people. There's no one big money drop from somewhere in a unicorn scenario. Over 1,800 co-investors came to create this space from Ukraine and from all over the globe. And these are ordinary people, just like you guys are sitting in the audience. So for us, I truly believe this is a unique model of equity, crowdfunding, and fundraising, and people who are becoming co-owners of the change. Under that one roof, I keep trying to move through the slides so you can see at least more of it. Under that one roof, we have managed to unite businesses, social society, and even local government to become as a catalyst for the socio-economic changes in our region and in the country. Today, we have restored a little bit more than 50% of the space, with half of it still going on. And this is a beautiful entrance. For European audience, for you, the word sustainability, it's something you already have heard for a long time. It's a standard of living. For us, it's a synonym of survival and development, and I'll talk about it later in our panel. For us, Prompriled is a model of sustainable circular economy in action. So we revitalize an old factory. We create, we conserve energy by creating a special energy system, and we create an inclusive and eco-friendly environment. I'll spring more through these slides so you can see some of the projects that have been happening at Prompriled. And I want to end, we even do concerts. For us, this is a ready-to-use blueprint for the whole Ukraine. So we believe that when the time comes for reconstruction, and we look towards the industrial zones in Kharkiv, in Zaporizhia, or in Mariupol, we will not need to reinvent the wheel already. We will have an example in Ivano-Frankivsk that can be replicated. It is a model where public space belongs to the community that co-created it, where businesses and international partners support social initiative, and where financial viability, as it is an impact investment project, goes hand in hand with deep care for ecology and culture. And to summarize, we believe that Ukraine is paying an ultimate, unfortunately, price for the values of freedom and democracy that we all share. And we invite you to a partnership to co-create the space of reconstruction, a space that we believe we can scale across the whole country.
Thank you very much, Oksana. And I must add also that your efforts were duly acknowledged as Prompriled has won the NEB prize last year, right? And what did this acknowledgement meant to you and your team?
You know, when I joined Prompriled, it was in 2019. Our CEO at that time said that, we are not aiming to compete with Kyiv. We're not aiming to compete with Kharkiv or Zaporizhia. We're aiming to compete with San Francisco and London. And at that time, I mean, coming from a city of 200,000 people, it sounded very funny. So when we received that award, we realized that we were indeed building a prototype of a future that can be replicated not just across Ukraine, but that has useful lessons to learn from for the rest of the Europe and the world at large.
Thank you, and I believe you have everything to do that. And then moving on to our next speakers. So Ruta, welcome.
Hello to everyone. My name is Ruta Leitanaite. I am an architect, and it's a huge pleasure to be here with you for the second time. This is the second festival that I'm attending as the participant. And as I mentioned, I'm an architect, and my presentation and my projects are exploring how architecture can contribute to the sustainable and beautiful and inclusive rebuilding of Ukraine. So I will run very quickly through, but this is not the right presentation. Okay. The presentation is wrong, so I will talk without any presentation. I will speak about several projects that I was involved in. So first of them is the Yuri Herit project that you saw the slides on the screen. This is a cultural architectural project that was supported by a Creative Europe program. It lasted for 3 years. We managed to create a consortium of 11 architectural organizations from European Union. 3 of them were coming from Ukraine. And the whole project circled around the topic of cultural heritage. The name of the project is EuroHerit, Architects for Heritage in Ukraine, Recreating Identity and Memory. The aim of the project was to build the capacity of cultural heritage specialists in Ukraine, mainly the architects. So together with Ukrainian and European Union architects, we were exploring different topics such as evaluation of value of cultural heritage, evaluation of damage done by war to cultural heritage. We were talking about regeneration and transformation, how to rebuild mass housing areas that could be source of affordable housing in Ukraine. How can we implement innovative technologies in recreation and regeneration of cultural heritage? How can we involve communities in the rebuilding of cultural heritage? So the project had ended 1 month ago, and I would encourage you to go to the website euroherit.eu just to see the results, the methodologies, and also the outcomes of it. The next project that I would want to talk about, and also my colleague Darius Kusavicius would also speak about that, is an open architectural competition, Future School for Ukraine. So that was the initiative by Lithuanian government, and Architects Association of Lithuania, that I represent as well, was the organizer of an international architectural competition. So the aim of this competition was to create a project for a new school that could be built in Ukraine more than once. And while doing this competition, we of course were consulting with Ukrainian architects and educational specialists, drafting the vision that was embedded in the competition brief. And what we created was an adaptive project for a new school in Ukraine that is not a typical project, not a project that should be built in Ukraine like hundreds of the same project, but every time this project would be adapted to each location, to each community. And this project, Future School for Ukraine, also became a pilot project of a new European Bauhaus lab for public infrastructure for Ukraine that is still running. And after the NEB Festival, we will have one event to present the outcomes of the competition. And the last initiative that I was involved in was the experts group for European Commission. In 2024, we were invited to guide the European Commission while drafting the recommendations for safeguarding cultural heritage in Ukraine. So this document is also public, and you can take a look at that. So that's it from me for the introduction. Should I answer your first question on the importance of NEB values in this context,
please.
Tanya?
And yeah, about the projects you did, and especially the school, what was the future in it, and how did this project reflected on these wartime realities, and how did you see this concept adjusted in Ukraine?
Okay, I'll try to be as short as possible, but when we talk about European Bauhaus, I think that all of us, we are aware that European Bauhaus is like a soul for the Green Deal. And it's always a debate how much quality, beauty, inclusiveness are essential to our built environment. So in the context of war, I would also agree that as in the Green Deal, in the context of war, those qualities are really essential. These are not only the decorations, but they really lie in the core, because it makes no sense to build just square meters if they are coming with no content. So aesthetics, beauty. So beauty is not only the makeup that we have, but it's about the memory. So I'm talking from the part of cultural heritage, but also our built environment, when it has certain message encoded in the aesthetics, it relates a lot with the memory. It's about sensitivity to the context, talking about typical projects built after the Second World War that really destroyed our landscapes and our urbanscapes. And aesthetics is also a tool of working with communities psychologically, because it is a normality that appeases one's mind. So if you are in an environment that pleases you, you feel like a normal person. And I think that especially people who are in those critical situations, they deserve to get that kind of environment. And of course, when you talk with communities, when you ask them to think about the future and to dream of the environment that should be aesthetic, it also builds their resilience and brings them hope. So I would not undermine the understanding and of the relevance of the beauty and aesthetics. Then sustainability. I'm not the expert of sustainability, but I think in this context of the war, what is really specific for Ukraine, it's not only to talk about energy efficiency, but also to react on actuality. So for example, work with debris. What do we do with all those demolitions? Do we reuse them, and how do we do that? We also have to think of what will happen with those buildings that we are rebuilding or building in the future. So, you know, shelters, flexibility of the buildings are also to be considered. All the efforts of rebuilding should empower the local industries, because we know that war is damaging not only the physical infrastructure but also economy of Ukraine. So the more our build industry is related with local industries, the better, and local materials. And of course, getting back to the quality. When we talk about, you know, temporary help, temporary containers that are being brought to Ukraine, nothing is more permanent than temporality. So when we think about sustainability, let's think as well how much those containers or temporary infrastructure is sustainable or not. And then together is everything. I think that the project you inherit really proves how important it is to bring the communities together, because it's about building the society. We are architects, so we are more experts in building our environment, but through this project we understood that with empowering people on decision on their environment, you really build the societies. And then the experience of Future School and Ukraine, what taught us as well that it's really crucial to co-create. Co-create with local people and co-create with Ukrainians. I know that for many European Union architects, professionals and donors, is really tempting to copy-paste the experience and to say, hey, we have a beautiful project that really worked in whatever country, and we just give it to you. But it's not working like that. So together means also working with local experts at the very equal basis, and that's how you get to the best results. So that would be my take on the first question.
Ruta, thank you very much for such profound and yeah, impressive insights. And yeah, next to Darius, yeah.
Thank you, and really good to speak after Ruta, because she explained exactly how government of Lithuania understands what we're dealing with, and this is not mine. 1 second. Oh, okay. I don't see it on this screen. Yes, it's here. Good. So, for us, reconstruction started before the full-scale war. Let me remind you that the war in Ukraine is ongoing for more than 12 years already. It started in 2014, and Avdiivka was the school which was bombed at some point of the war, and in 2019, Lithuania rebuilt it. Unfortunately, at the last column, you see what's left from on the right side. What's left from that school, but
and it's now occupied territory, right?
This was when we, for the first time in the history of our development agency, CPVA, understood what does it mean to be doing infrastructural projects in Ukraine. And this very sad and unfortunate experience fortunately led us into the ability to act fast when the full-scale war started. And our first schools with dual purpose, underground shelters, fully used for schooling, not only for hiding, were opened already in 2023. One of the schools in the photos is called Lithuanian-Ukrainian Lyceum #1. It's in Borodyanka, very close to Kiev. I believe like tens, if not hundreds of delegations visited exactly that particular object with luckily name of Lithuania in it. And this is when actually European Commission understood that not only soft projects can be implemented in support of reforms or in support of budgetary support, etc., but also infrastructure, especially social infrastructure, not only repairs of electricity grids, which are essential, but also social infrastructure is what I love to call diplomacy of hope. This is how we can keep people in places, because if there is no hospital, no school, no kindergarten, there will be no life there. And this is, yes, we still talk about emergency, but I believe this is strategic. And from everything, NEP was first announced in what, 2020, so Avdiivka is pre-NEP times. Everything we started building after is after New European Bauhaus was announced as a concept, but actually it's exactly how we understand things. It's co-created together with Ukrainians. We try to be as sustainable as possible in those circumstances. For example, on all our objects we've built so far, we have solar panels. For this winter, I can tell you, those schools were telling us directly, we didn't have to choose between heating and light. We could have those both things. Same goes for hospitals, etc., etc. So I believe we convinced European Commission, and that's when we started with EU programming, for which we are building on a front line. One is already built, 5 more to go. Dual-purpose underground shelters to be used as schools, which evolved into coalitions, International Coalition of Civil Shelters, whatever the name is, led by Finland, where we as well are building additional objects. So one of our principles is scalability, and this is where we are now with what we are doing. Ruta explained already, and really thanks to her, because I'm not very good at explaining NEP principles, but this is future school. I'm proud to say that this is not only on paper. The actual adaptive, repeatable design was created by Italian architect Scanduro, but in the process, Lithuanian Architects Union participated, Ukrainian architects, etc., etc., etc. And we've chosen first location already. We have a contract, and technical documentation is under preparation for the first such school to be built in Zhytomyr, where Lyceum number 25 was destroyed in 2023, I believe, at the beginning of a full-scale war. A little bit on NEP principles. I believe already next month we are going to Zhytomyr with 3, 4 possible configurations of how future school in Zhytomyr can look like according to the landmass we have, to discuss it with teachers, with parents, with the community, and from very, very beginning involve them into actual programming of a school, which I believe will be open in September 2028. So this is what we do.
And thank you very much for what you are doing. And there were several interesting points here. One I would like to kind of focus on is like this constant dynamics, right, about like our understanding about relationships between hard infrastructure and what we call soft infrastructure, right? And we understand more and more like how one is not possible without another. And I thank you for still keeping investing in the hard infrastructure in spite of like this first example which you shared with us, right? With the Avdiivka school, which is now in the occupied territory, which still, doesn't prevent you from continuing and still building up, right, new schools and everything. But every one of you mentioned, right, about this, how important is like this human component, right? And the word resilience is something which very often mentioned, right? One of the most frequently used concepts when we talk about Ukraine, and it is, the ability of Ukrainians to withstand shocks and bounce back and not only carry on but to innovate is, of course, admiring. And like I can share the most recent example with you from my own neighborhood. A little bit more than a week ago, we had another massive missile and drone attack, and the favorite neighborhood farmers market was completely destroyed and burned out, and people started to sell flowers and cucumbers, maybe like, well, the next day they were clearing debris, but the next 2 days or 3 days they already, coming back with their farming goods, and people coming back to this place, and because it's like their favorite place, and they keep going on there. So so resilience lies in people, right? And at the same time, I would like to challenge a little bit this concept, because resilience is not something given, right? And it cannot be understood as unlimited resource. And these years of, continuing prolonged pressure has created, additional vulnerabilities and, in institutions, communities, and individuals. And Oksana, I wanted to ask you, from your perspective, what does resilience actually mean in the context of ongoing war in Ukrainian communities and, in communities you work with?
First of all, thank you for saying that resilience is a finite resource, because it is. It is not an inherent trait that just people magically have somewhere. It is more of a daily discipline and an ecosystem that helps people bounce back. Actually, when I saw your question first, I went to Google what is resilience, to understand what is the psychological meaning behind resilience, what is the research behind what actually helps societies be resilient. And I realized that while, yes, it is an important topic in Ukraine for survival, it is also a crucial skill for Europe. It is probably one of the top skills needed to survive in the 21st century. So there are apparently 3 factors that help build resilient communities. First, when we think about resilience, we often think about it from an engineering perspective, that what is a resilient material is something we take apart and then it comes back together. But the scientists are saying that we should think of it not from an engineering perspective, but more from a perspective of evolutionary resilience. That when we don't just bounce back, but we bounce forward. And there are apparently 3 factors that impact our ability to do so. And the first factor is the community, which links very nicely with the together principle of NAB. There is a very smart person, I believe, Dr. Daniel Aldrich, if I remembered the name that I Googled correctly. He has been doing research of societies that have been dealing with global disasters for the last 70, 80 years. And he noticed that it is not the amount of humanitarian aid or the amount of financial aid that actually helps societies to restore. It is the social cohesion, the trust, and the networks that exist within the community. And I believe the principles of NAB and the way it is implemented in Promprilat does exactly that. Within Promprilat, we have open spaces that are designed in a way that people from very different sectors can meet in the hallways and can talk with each other. So you can be a mother taking your child to school, you can sit for a coffee next to a guy who's doing a startup, and then next to it you can sit to an investment person from the municipality. And they all interact and they all build this trust network together. It is also very critical for us that we have the local municipality represented in Promprilat. And it is now working very beautifully, as if I can say so, in part of crisis. For many prosperous societies, the way you treat municipalities is like, we pay taxes and we outsource the tasks to you that you do that. But in time of crisis and disaster, municipalities are often short-staffed and they cannot handle that. And that is where the community needs to take some part of doing the municipality job. So having this link and ownership from the community of their own space, and not just your municipality, please fix this grid for me, it is very critical. And having municipality within Promprilat helps us do so. So that is about the community and the together. The second factor is the agency. There's been many researches that says that people who are helpless, who feel helpless, are the ones who don't do things. So giving people the voice and the ability to impact their own community helps them be resilient and rebuild. And for us, it is built in the basic framework of Promprilat because it is a co-investment project. If you can imagine 1,800 people from all walks of life coming together, putting their money to design a space, you understand that they feel the ownership for it. So they have this agency to do so. And the last point is creating the structures that support all of this community agency happening. And I actually wanted to reflect and connect to what you were saying about the beauty. I mean, when you think of the principles of NAP, together makes a lot of sense. Sustainable, yes, makes a lot of sense. We need to have circular economy with understanding of finite resources. But beauty, I mean, in terms of disaster, it probably seems, well, why would you need beauty? What is needed? Well, when you sleep half of the night in a shelter with your kids, and you wake up in the morning, and you're probably still a little bit drowned from all of this noise of whatever is flying over. And then you go to work, because you have to go to work, at 9 in the morning, and you come to a place that is beautiful. And you come to a place that has so much light as this one, that has beautiful art on the walls, that is designed in a way that is ergonomic for you, that makes you feel comfortable and relaxed. It creates the psychological safety. So it is the cultural heritage part, and the memory is definitely very important. But beauty is about dignity. It's about making us feel human. And that is why I truly believe that designing, not me of course, but when the architects were designing Promprilat, they probably had that principle in mind, that when people walk into this building, they feel human and they see of what the possible future can be for them.
Thank you, Oksana. And to continue a little bit, thank you. And continue this discussion about resilience and this relationship between psychological and physical resilience, I would like to ask Darius to elaborate a little bit on that, on how your experience in Ukraine taught you to, like, how this reconstruction and recovery can contribute in the future to withstand, the potential military, economic, climatic shocks. You already mentioned, the solar panels, so decentralization of the grid. So you already mentioned shelters. So we, changed our notions of, safety and security in buildings, right? When we were talking about transparency and, this kind of things, we talked about a lot of glass and, transparency, both physical and metaphorical. Right now we are probably talking about, therapeutical architecture and, again, shelters everywhere and so on. Are there anything you think can be, you might in the future or already probably introducing in the government plans for Lithuania, for example, how you changed your, preconceptions or approaches?
Very good question. Let me step back for a moment on the topic of resilience. Every time when I'm coming back from Ukraine, and people are asking me, so how are they holding? How is everything there? My message is the same. That country is unbeatable. Those people, they are unbeatable. After such a terrible winter, they are still fighting, no matter what. It is unbelievable. And our job is to support their fight. So answering your question, how in all possible ways, everything we do to help and support directly influences the mood, morality, motivation, possibility to stay, possibility to work because your child is safe, possibility to work because, etc., etc., etc. Everything we do, and on all fronts. It's not only infrastructure. Infrastructure is really important, but even talking about reconstruction, for example, we are in the lead of one of the projects which exactly deals with construction regulation in Ukraine, which is still like a lot of things to improve there. Or, for example, let's see how many architects there are in Ukraine, or how many, innovative designs there are ready. On each of those fronts, there is a work to be done, and I believe for this community as well, there is a lot of work to be done there. Just for you to understand, every project, from the smallest infrastructural projects, it's minimum year and a half. Bigger project is 2.5 years, because of mobilization, because of air alerts, because of economic situation where construction company can say just we cannot continue like that, etc., etc. So if we want to be strategic about rebuilding Ukraine when the war ends, hopefully sooner than later, this is the moment now. Like, we have to have plans and start building technical documentation, because when the time will come to rebuild, we will lack documentation to do that. So the time is now, and I'm really happy to see that more and more countries follow this approach. IFIs, financial institutions, follow this approach and see how they can step in supporting local communities and hromadas. So I believe we're moving in that direction.
Thank you, Doris. And I extend maybe similar question to Ruta, rephrase it a little bit. So the most damage assessment, recovery and reconstruction methodologies, they are developed for post-crisis traditionally, right, or post-conflict settings. And in Ukraine is like happening in real time, right? And for you as an architect and as a teacher in the architectural school, so what assumptions which were embedded in traditional post-crisis approaches has been challenged by your experience in Ukraine, and how you think these experiences can inform the future international recovery frameworks?
I'm not an expert in post-crisis because this is the first crisis that I get involved into very personally. But
hopefully
yeah, of course, me and Darius, we are from Baltics. So knowing the geopolitical talks right now, for us it's really, really important to take some lessons from Ukraine as well. So I would say how the strategies can change, and my observations from Ukraine. So I would say there are two areas. If we divide, that would be soft and hard, rebuilding or reacting, emergency reacting. Soft is about human resources, and especially when talking about cultural heritage, I often heard and also hear the cry from Ukrainian cultural sector that there are no people. There are no people because many of them, they are in the war, and of course there are no people because, cultural heritage, this is not a field of very high income, so there were not that many people even before the war. And even those people who are there, they lack certain competences. So competence building, preparation of the experts, building frameworks, working on methodologies, building networks between experts. This is some work that should be done even before the war. And I think that this is one of the lessons that we take from the situation. Now about the hard rebuilding, of course we have to react and we have to build now on what's needed, and that's why the Future School for Ukraine, that's why other projects of schools that were rebuilt and they were bombed by Russians once again. But we have to continue because stopping is the exact thing that Russia wants from Ukraine. If we stop living, then this is one step to victory for the other side. And the life is going on, and Ukraine is proving that very well. So we have to build right now what is needed, with a little exemption: please no trash, and trash in architectural understanding. And then, of course, we have to plan ahead the resources and processes. And now I'm talking more about urban planning, more than planning of one architectural building. And then other lessons learned that I take from Ukraine is speed and determination in doing things, avoiding those 10 years of talking, but just doing things. That may sound funny, but flexible bureaucracy and readiness to reshape legislative bases. This is something that we never experienced in Lithuania, and probably it's really hard to understand in the framework of European Union. But this willingness of shaping the legislative basis and being ready to accept innovative approaches, quality approaches, even if the laws don't allow that, and then reshaping the laws according to the good practice, this is a way to go, I guess, with the quality having as the priority. And also what we can take as the experience as well. So we joke that Americans are learning from Ukrainian drones creators. Then architects could also learn from Ukrainian architects as well, especially in the fields of shelters, design and build of the shelters, and damage evaluation of cultural heritage, because this is an experience that is really spreading out in Ukraine at really great extent. And then a curious thing, the expanding profile of cultural institutions that are now working not only as just a mere museum or mere theater, but those institutions are becoming hubs for communities. So in a way, we are expanding our profile so that everybody who is working in a public or private sector, they are working for their community as well. So these are the lessons that I would take.
That's quite many lessons, Ruta. Thank you so much. And I understand we need to wrap up soon. So I'll ask one last question to everyone, whoever wants to respond or reflect. So since the first Ukraine Recovery Conference in Lugano back in 2022, right, I don't know, a few months after the full-scale invasion, the basic principle of the approach to Ukrainian recovery was formulated, build back better. So it's been a few years on since that principle was adopted. So how you understand it now, and do you think it has, or your understanding of this principle or approach has changed or been challenged? So who wants to?
I can start.
Yeah, please.
It's like I believe in this principle. Everything like to give a hope, you just have to build back better. The lesson for me and for our government is that we shouldn't overdo, and if because everyone wants to do better, and we might go too far if everyone goes better in different directions. So very important lesson for us is coordination on everything we do amongst all the partners who are trying to support, not to go into something really too eclectic. And second, ownership and inclusion of Ukrainians into everything we do, because we won't rebuild everything. I believe what we do is to ensure emerging needs, to lead by setting examples, to set tracks for other instruments to catch up on, but Ukrainians will have to do the rebuilding of what is destroyed. Therefore, inclusion into everything is key.
Thank you. The question is, do we need to rebuild everything? Ruta?
Yeah, if I may add, we can talk about the rebuilding of Ukraine in three, let's say, levels: reconstruction, recovery, and regeneration. So reconstruction is more about, rebuilding of physical infrastructure. Then recovery is more about soft things, so rebuilding economy and societies. And then the regeneration is one step forward. So it's like energy plus building. So rebuilding society's economy and your environment in a way that it adds up to the resources that were already used. So going back to the recovery thing about soft thing, I think that Ukraine is rebuilding itself in many aspects, and this is an essential shift because it's about highlighting the Ukrainian identity and reintegration into the European family. So the country is not only preparing to build back better, but it's also paving a way to the invisible road that follows it. And I'm talking about the National Plan of Recovery that has a sector for culture embedded. You have Cultural Heritage Fund already founded. And let's say architectural schools are also revising their programs and thinking about a critical reconstruction when it comes to the transformation of their programs. So the future generation of young architects, they will deal with this. And yeah, my last wish, if I make that wish to Ukrainian society, when we think about building back better or building forward better, I would see that transformation should be the key, and using of the existing resources and adding up that value, like in the example of Prompilada, this is the way to go, I guess, not only for Ukraine, but for the whole Europe.
Ruta, thank you so much, and I think several very important words has been mentioned here, not only recovery, but also regeneration, building forward. So thank you all very much. Thank you to my speakers, and thank you to the audience, and big thanks to the NEP Festival for having this conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Tatiana, for this panel discussion and, of course, all your guests. Now, for our next panel discussion before the lunch break, we are going to talk cultural and heritage. They are often described as bridges between our past and our present and our future. They are there to understand where we come from, where we are heading, who we are, and how to imagine the societies of tomorrow. Now, cultural institutions today face a profound change. Digital technologies are transforming how audiences are engaging with collections and knowledge. You can already see it here in the museum. Now, expectations around accessibility and inclusion are evolving also very rapidly. Now, at the same time, museums and cultural institutions are increasingly expected to serve as spaces for participation, inclusion, dialogue, and innovation. Now, this raises a fundamental question. How can we ensure that heritage remains open for everyone, relevant and accessible, of course, for everyone in the 21st century? To guide you through this conversation, I am delighted to welcome our moderator, José Luis de Vicente. He is the curator and the co-director of FAST, Archipelago of Possible Futures. Give him a round of applause.